The rain had already started falling over Windsor when the first black vehicle rolled through the private gates just after midnight. No cameras saw it. No reporters were waiting. Even the palace staff on duty that night would later whisper that something felt wrong the moment the headlights disappeared into the courtyard. Because inside the walls of the monarchy, silence is often more dangerous than shouting. And on that night, the silence surrounding King Charles, Princess Anne, Queen Camilla, and Princess Catherine was so complete that it frightened the people who served closest to them. For weeks, rumors had been building behind palace doors. Senior aides were moving between offices at unusual hours. Confidential meetings were taking place without official schedules. Entire sections of royal correspondence had reportedly been redirected through Prince William's private office instead of the king's communications team. Staff members who had worked for the monarchy for decades quietly noticed something they could not explain. Camilla's influence inside the institution appeared to be shrinking by the day. At first, most assumed it was temporary. Charles had been under increasing pressure because of his health concerns, and William had gradually taken on more operational responsibilities. That seemed normal enough. But then came the closed-door meetings involving Princess Anne. And inside royal circles, that changed everything. And is not known for palace drama. She does not chase headlines. She does not leak stories to journalists. Throughout her entire life, she has operated with the cold discipline of someone who views the monarchy not as a celebrity brand, but as a duty. Palace insiders have long described her as the late Queen Elizabeth's true enforcer, the person trusted to handle difficult matters without emotion getting in the way. So when Anne suddenly became deeply involved in internal restructuring discussions, senior staff reportedly understood immediately that this was not routine administration. Something serious had happened. According to whispers circulating through royal circles, the breaking point came after William's team allegedly completed an internal review of royal charitable operations connected to several patronage projects associated with Camilla's office. The claims surrounding that review have never been publicly verified, and no official statement has ever confirmed wrongdoing of any kind. But inside the palace, speculation exploded. Staff reportedly believed the findings were politically dangerous enough to threaten the monarchy's public credibility if they ever leaked beyond palace walls. And that was when Anne moved. The confrontation, according to multiple dramatic retellings circulating online, supposedly happened at Clarence House behind completely sealed doors. Camilla allegedly entered the room believing she was attending another private strategy meeting about upcoming royal appearances. Instead, she found Anne waiting with senior aides and a stack of documents spread across the table. No raised voices were reportedly heard outside the room. That is what unsettled staff the most. Because people familiar with and say she becomes calmer when she is most serious. One former palace employee once described Anne's approach during moments of conflict in chilling terms. If Anne stops sounding emotional, the staffer claimed, it means the decision has already been made. According to the rumors, Anne informed Camilla that several operational powers connected to her office were being suspended immediately while internal matters were reorganized under William's oversight. Certain patronage responsibilities would reportedly be reassigned. Some communications access would be restricted. Key staff attached to Camilla's household would temporarily report elsewhere. And then came the moment that palace watchers cannot stop talking about. The story claims and told Camilla that for the stability of the institution, she would need to leave Clarence House temporarily while sensitive matters were handled privately. No public announcement. No press briefing. No explanation. Just silence. Whether every detail is true remains impossible to confirm. But what matters is that by sunrise, palace insiders noticed something undeniable. Camilla was gone from public view. For 48 hours, there were no photographs of her. No official appearances. No statements released in her name. Royal commentators who usually receive background guidance from palace sources suddenly received nothing at all. And while that mystery deepened, something even more astonishing was allegedly unfolding at Windsor Castle. Late that same night, Catherine arrived alone. No senior ladies-in-waiting accompanied her. No photographers captured her entrance. The future queen reportedly walked through one of Windsor's private corridors shortly after midnight and entered a candlelit sitting room where King Charles was waiting by himself. The details of what happened next sound almost unbelievable, which is exactly why the story spread so rapidly among royal observers. According to the rumors, Charles was not dressed as monarch that night. No ceremonial insignia. No formal attire. No symbols of royal authority whatsoever. Palace staff allegedly said he appeared exhausted, emotionally broken, and far older than he usually seemed in public. For years, Catherine had carried the burden of representing stability inside a monarchy constantly overshadowed by scandal, tension, and public division. She smiled through every appearance. She followed every protocol. She endured relentless media scrutiny while remaining publicly silent about personal struggles that reportedly affected her far more deeply than most people realized. And according to those whispers from inside Windsor, Charles finally confronted the possibility that the institution had failed her. The alleged turning point came after the king reviewed confidential assessments regarding Catherine's health, emotional strain, and the pressure she had endured during some of the monarchy's most turbulent years. Reports of her visible weight loss, emotional exhaustion, and increasing isolation reportedly shook Charles deeply. For perhaps the first time, insiders claim he recognized the human cost behind the monarchy's carefully polished public image. And then came the moment that has now become the center of the entire story. According to palace whispers, Charles stood before Catherine, lowered himself to one knee, and apologized. A reigning British monarch kneeling before his daughter-in-law is the kind of image almost impossible to imagine. Yet that single detail is precisely what made the rumor explode across social media and royal discussion circles. The alleged words spoken that night vary depending on who tells the story. But one version continues appearing again and again in online discussions. "You protected this family when we did not protect you." Whether Charles truly said those words is unknown. But the emotional power of the image transformed the rumor into something larger than gossip. To many royal watchers, it symbolized a monarchy realizing too late that Catherine had become its emotional center. Then came another extraordinary claim. Some insiders began whispering that Charles handed Catherine a deeply personal object once belonging to Queen Elizabeth, a private ring rarely seen publicly and supposedly associated with the late Queen's years of grief after Prince Philip's death. The symbolism was impossible to miss. Not a crown. Not power. Responsibility. And according to those same rumors, Princess Anne fully supported what happened in that room. That detail matters because Anne has always been viewed as the ultimate guardian of her mother's legacy. She spent decades protecting Queen Elizabeth from scandals, internal rivalries, and institutional chaos. If Anne truly aligned herself behind Catherine, it would represent a massive shift inside the royal family's balance of power. Some palace observers believe and sees Catherine as the monarchy's safest future, someone capable of rebuilding public trust during a time when faith in royal institutions has weakened dramatically. And that belief reportedly traces back to Queen Elizabeth herself. One of the most dramatic claims attached to this entire story involves a supposed sealed letter hidden within the Windsor archives. According to online speculation, the late Queen allegedly left behind private written guidance expressing deep concern about future instability within the monarchy. No verified evidence of such a letter has ever been produced publicly. But rumor claims the document described Catherine as the family member best suited to preserve the monarchy's long-term credibility with the public. The story spread because many people found it believable emotionally, even if not factually. Catherine has consistently maintained strong public approval ratings. She rarely engages in controversy. She avoids public feuds. She projects restraint, discipline, and stability, qualities many royal supporters associate with Queen Elizabeth herself. In contrast, Camilla has spent decades battling public skepticism rooted in the painful history surrounding Charles and Princess Diana. Although her public image improved significantly over the years, sections of the public never fully accepted her emotionally as queen. That contrast fuels nearly every dramatic royal narrative circulating online today. But perhaps the darkest part of the entire rumor concerns what supposedly happened after Camilla's removal from the center of palace operations. According to whispers, certain ceremonial privileges connected to her household were quietly frozen. Staff assignments shifted. Communications channels changed. Meetings once routed through her office allegedly stopped altogether. Yet no official demotion occurred. That distinction is critical. Camilla still remains queen consort publicly. She still appears beside Charles during royal events. No legal change removed her title. But according to the narrative spreading through royal circles, the real loss was influence rather than status. And inside royal institutions, influence matters far more than titles printed on paper. Some versions of the story claim William orchestrated much of the restructuring behind the scenes while allowing and to deliver the institutional authority needed to make it stick. Others insist Charles himself reluctantly approved everything after recognizing the monarchy's future depended on stabilizing public trust around Catherine. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is undeniable. The British monarchy is entering a fragile period unlike anything it has faced in decades. Charles is aging. William is preparing for eventual kingship. Catherine has become increasingly central to the monarchy's public image, and remains the family's most quietly powerful figure. That combination has created an atmosphere where even the wildest palace rumors suddenly feel plausible to millions of people watching from the outside. Because beneath all the gossip, drama, and speculation lies a deeper fear shared by royal observers everywhere, the fear that the monarchy itself may be struggling to survive the modern age. Every generation of royals faces a defining crisis. For Queen Elizabeth, it was preserving stability through wars, divorces, Diana's death, and enormous social change. For Charles, it may become something entirely different, convincing the public that the institution still deserves trust at all. And that is why stories like this spread so explosively. Not because people know they are true, but because emotionally they feel possible. A weary king apologizing for past failures. A fiercely loyal princess protecting her mother's legacy. A future queen carrying the emotional weight of the institution. And a royal household quietly rearranging power behind palace walls while the world watches from outside the gates. Whether any midnight confrontation truly happened may never be known publicly. The monarchy survives partly because secrecy remains one of its oldest weapons. Palace insiders understand that silence can preserve institutions just as effectively as public statements. But if even fragments of these rumors reflect reality, then something profound is changing inside the House of Windsor. The old order built around Charles and Camilla may slowly be giving way to a new era centered on William and Catherine.